Hi guys, and welcome to my latest video. Today we're going to be doing a top 10 Doctor Who stories, because I just feel like I've been neglecting this channel a little bit. I'm also kind of neglecting the other channel as well, but this one more so. I only upload like a couple of times a year here, so I'd like to do some more stuff. I've been sort of compiling this list for about a month now, and I'm pretty happy with it. It was meant to be a mixture of modern Doctor Who and classic Doctor Who, and there were some classic and some modern Doctor Who stories in the running. There was the Silence in the Library two-parter, and there was the Series 4 finale and the Series 1 finale as well. But they just didn't make it. So they were in the running, they just didn't make it. So I've got 10 stories here. I've got all my DVDs, got them down on the shelves, which was quite difficult because the shelves are all very crowded at the moment, so I had to get stuff out of the way. To give you a clue of what the kind of stuff I like, my top 3 Doctors, who are my favourites, are Tom Baker 1, Sylvester McCoy 2, and Patrick Troughton 3. They're my, top 3. How often each Doctor is featured does not necessarily correlate to that. I'll just give you a quick run over this. There are 2 William Hartnell stories, 3 Patrick Troughton stories, 2 John Pertwee stories, 2 Tom Baker stories, and 1 Colin Baker story. So even though Sylvester is my second favourite Doctor, he isn't actually on the list. Although Remembrance of the Daleks is probably number 11. But yeah, and people aren't going to like these choices, but that's why they're mine and not yours. So, starting with number 10, my favourite subgenre of horror is the small town conspiracy, which is when you have a group of strangers, or just a couple of strangers, who wander into this place they've never been before, and everyone in the town is acting weird, and they all are holding this sort of deep, dark secret, which you're very gradually lit in on, and the android invasion is certainly an example of this. This is one of the earliest, not the first, but it's one of the earliest Doctor Who classic Doctor Who stories I ever saw. The absolute first was An Unearthly Child, and then after that, when I was more an adult, it was The Brain of Morbius. I caught that halfway through, when the Horror Channel were doing their Who and Horror thing, but one of the ones very shortly after that was this, The Android Invasion, and I loved it then. I love it now. It is a sort of quick overview of the plot. I'm not going to read this because it's too long, but basically Sarah and the Doctor, Sarah Jane, that is, who isn't pictured anywhere on it actually. But yeah, Sarah and the Doctor, they land on Earth, or what they think is Earth at the time. Spoilers. They're wander into this village looking for unit headquarters or something like that. It's been a while since I've seen it. They encounter the villagers. They're acting very strangely, very unusually. There are these guys in spacesuits with guns in their fingers who keep shooting at them. And it's very unusual. I'm not very good at reviewing, so that's what that's all about. But I just really like this. It's really weird. The designs of the androids is really just great. There's the fantastic cliffhanger there where Sarah Jane's face falls off, probably the greatest cliffhanger in Doctor Who history, or up there certainly. The one problem with this story is that the main villains, the main alien villains, the Kralls, as you can see, sorry about the glare, as you can see there, he's a Krall. They should have been Sontarans, because they already look like Sontarans. The very first time you see him, when you just see his eyes through a slit in the wall, you think, oh, it's the Sontarans, but then it turns out it's not the Sontarans. The only improvement that could be made to this story would be if the Kralls were the Sontarans. That would be the one improvement. Apart from that, it's perfect. My cat is interrupting me. Do you want to see Joe? I'll let Joe in. This is Joe, everybody. So, yeah, that is that. It is just a story that I really, really enjoy. It's just a kind of inexplicable thing. I mean, I know loads of people really hate this story, or they just kind of think it's a load of nothing, but I absolutely adore it. Are you just going to be wandering around there, Joe? That's fine, I suppose. But yeah, it's just one of them things. Number 10, the android invasion. Number 9, Revelation of the Daleks, the only Colin Baker story on this list. I really like Colin, he's definitely one of my favourites. I know I said my top 3 there, but he might be 4 or 5. I hadn't thought about my list all that much, to be totally honest. But this is my favourite Dalek story of the 80s. Remembrance is very close. As I said, it's number 11, and this is number 9, in terms of this list. But I just really like it. It's much darker. It's very Soylent Green. I know, what's his name? Eric Saywood said he hadn't actually seen or read Soylent Green before writing it. I'm not sure how much I believe that, because Eric Saywood's word has been dubious, we'll say. But I just really, really love this story. Terry Malloy makes his not debut as Davros. Joe, do you like it? Joe likes it, apparently. Likes it so much, he's got his snot on Colin's face. It's not a perfect... I mean, none of these are perfect stories, because it's Doctor Who. Nothing's perfect, let alone any Doctor Who ever. But it's a really dark, disturbing story. It has Alexis Sale in it, so it's not the only Doctor Who story to have a young one in it. As a matter of fact, it's not even the only Colin Baker story to have a young one in it, because Christopher Ryan was in Mind Warp. But it is the only good Colin Baker story to feature a young one. No offence to Mind Warp. It was enjoyable. I mean, I enjoy all of Doctor Who, so let's get that straight. But I really enjoy it. The Dalek voices are slightly naff, but that's made up for by the glass Dalek. The glass Dalek makes up for all the flaws in this. That scene is just so... It's one of the most disturbing moments in the whole show. Which it reminds me of Who Culture, this YouTube channel, which I'm sure a couple of you may have seen. I'm not subscribed to it, but I watched the odd video. They did a video recently called Top 10 Most Disturbing Moments in Doctor Who History. And it was only modern Doctor Who. Doctor Who history, only modern Doctor Who. Which annoyed me slightly, because of the moment in this, as you know, and several other moments as well. But yeah, Perry is great. Her accent is, again, on the somewhat naff side, but I've always liked Perry. Her and the Doctor's bickering is always really enjoyable to me. This, interestingly enough, is the final Doctor Who story to ever shoot location work on film. From season 23 onwards, they shifted to videotape, so this was the final classic, I'm pretty sure just the final Doctor Who story ever. I don't think the modern series has used film. So yeah, the final Doctor Who story to use film, so that's interesting. I'm not very good at reviewing. I don't know if you've noticed this so far. This is just me talking to myself, really, for future reference. But yeah, Joe Bell, who is played by whatever his bloody name is, from that sitcom that I never watched but my mum seems to like. And yeah, that is my number 9, Revelation of the Daleks, my favourite Dalek story of the 1980s, but only just. Number 8, straight from a Dalek story to a Cyberman story. We have the very first Cyberman story, The 10th Planet, 1966. I haven't done the dates for these, have I? Mainly because I can't bloody remember. Android Invasion, 75. Revelation of the Daleks, 85. 10th Planet, 1966. Yes. I knew it was, I wondered if it crossed a year, but it doesn't. Just 1966. The first Cyberman story, the first Regeneration story, and the first story on our list to feature animation, because it's partially missing, of course. There is 2 partially missing and later animated episodes on this list, so prepare yourself for that. A fantastic concept, the Cybermen. I do think the Cybermen got a bit better, as you're going to see later on this list, spoilers. But I do really love the original Cyberman design. It's just, they're creepy, their concept is great, the idea of all, like, you know, plastic surgery gone wrong, and, you know, cybernetics and prosthetics gone wrong. The idea of the twin planet, although not even remotely scientifically accurate, is a really interesting science fiction concept. There are other missing episodes that I like I just recently, for the very first time, just a few days ago, watched the Faceless ones. I watched the loose cannon reconstruction, because apart from the 10th planet and a story that you can see later on this list, which was animated by the same people and involves the same monsters, which narrows it down to literally one story, I think all the animations are crap, apart from those ones. So, for those missing episodes, I've been just watching the loose cannon reconstructions, which are, I mean, at this point, just as enjoyable to me. It would obviously be better if they had the full episodes, but the missingness doesn't stop me from enjoying them. I also really love Dalek's Master Plan as well. But the Faceless ones is probably, so far, my favourite missing, you know, fully missing, or, you know, mostly missing story. But the 10th planet, I haven't done plot for them, have I? Whatever. It's just great. Everyone's seen it. Ben and Polly are two of, after having watched more of the stories, because Ben and Polly, of course, are the only companions throughout the whole of Doctor Who history where every single one of their stories is partially missing. The War Machines is technically complete as far as the DVDs are concerned, but there's actually still a minute of it missing, which they just reconstructed, so technically the original version of the War Machines is still missing. So Ben and Polly are the only companions where every single story that they appear in are missing. And as on my initial run through of Doctor Who, I pretty much missed out all the missing episodes apart from the ones that had been animated, and I skipped most of the animations because most of them are crap, apart from this and the late one I'm going to talk about. But so I've only just, like literally this month, gone through watching all the missing episodes as well, the loose cannon reconstructions, and Ben and Polly are great. And so they're probably in my top 5 60s companions, maybe. Yeah, definitely. I think Jamie number 1, then Vicky, and then them probably, and then I don't know, Dodo or something 5th. I don't know. I quite like Dodo, but she's not amazing. But yeah, the 10th planet has an actor in it. The main guy, or the main villain who plays Cutler, he was in 2001: Space Odyssey, which I learned from the Dalek 6388 video talking about the wheel in space. I learnt that fact because he doesn't actually look anything like how he does in 2001, but I don't know why, but because it was filmed very shortly. But anyway, yes, this is the 10th planet, and it is my 7th favourite, 10th, 9th, 8th professional YouTuber. This is my 8th favourite Doctor Who story, and it is a blooming good woon. 10, 9, 8. Number 7, we have Planet of the Daleks. Immediately back to the Daleks again. They're actually pretty evenly matched on here. There's 3 Cyberman stories and 3 Dalek stories on the list, so they're pretty evenly, or completely evenly matched. I don't know about the lengths of the episodes, but Planet of the Daleks is one which, again, I always assumed, it's another one that I saw on Who on Horror. I mean, pretty much most of these I saw on Who on Horror, but this is one of those ones where I saw it and assumed, oh, this is great, everyone must love this, and then you look it up later and a lot of people really don't like this. And I've never understood why. It's great. The Daleks are, I mean, forget about the Supreme, who's great, but I think just the regular plain drone Daleks from Planet of the Daleks are probably my favourite Dalek design. I just love how simple they are. I love the coat of paint that they got. A lot of people say it's the same. They're the same colour as they are in Genesis, but they're a lot more dark and sort of metallic paint in this than they are in Genesis. They're a lot more sort of matte in Genesis. They're much more sort of metallic metal looking in this, much more tank kind of coloured. And I just really love how they look in Planet of the Daleks. Joe, who is just great, has her absolute high point in this story, in my opinion. Of course, spoiler alert, in case you didn't know this, skip to the next 10 seconds if you don't want to hear this, but because Joe leaves in the very next story, the Green Death immediately follows Planet of the Daleks. A lot of people would say that's her high point. I like the Green Death, but as a story, Joe may have more to do in that than she does in this, but she still has a blooming lot to do in this. I mean, for pretty much the first episode of this, the Doctor is out cold. Literally, it's literally frost falling on him. So Jo is literally carrying pretty much the entirety of the first episode, and she's great. She's not an idiot. I mean, she does get stuff on her, the fungus stuff, but it's not really her fault. It's genuinely like she just didn't see it. So it's not like the classic bumbling female companion that we had in the 60s, just tripping over everything. She actually does stuff. She actually makes intelligent sort of decisions, as far as I can remember. It's been a while since I watched it, but I just remember her being just literally carrying the show. I mean, there could have been a Jo show. In fact, there was meant to be a Jo show, wasn't there? They were meant to do the Sarah Jane Adventures, but with Jo, and that would have been great, but it didn't happen, unfortunately. Not too late. Katie Manning's still around, so get on that, BBC. Get the Jo Grant Adventures, or the Jo Jones Adventures going. So, yeah, it's not my favourite Dalek story of the 70s, but it is my favourite Dalek story of Jon Pertwee's era. It is just dusty, actually. Yeah, I love it. There's just so much great stuff in it. In my head, I'm now mixing it up with Death to the Daleks, which is not. That's also a good story, but not as good as this. I just really like it. I really wish I could do like proper actual reviews of this. That moment where the Supreme Dalek kills the drone Dalek because he's made a mistake. Brutal. Another moment that should have been on Who Culture's Disturbing Moments list, but they're idiots. The Spyridons, I love the invisibleness. They actually did the effect decently, unlike some other times that they tried to do invisible monsters. And the Dalek voices, I can't believe I nearly forgot to talk about this. The Dalek voices in Planet of the Daleks are, in my opinion, the best Dalek voices that there ever were. Classic Who or New Who, I love the voices in Planet of the Daleks. They're really metallic, really electronic, really distorted, really loud. You can tell just whatever, I don't know the model, but whatever ring modulator they were using, they cranked it right up. Not dry at all, just pure wet, just right cranked it, cranked the volume, cranked the gain, cranked everything, and it's just really just, it's like the loudest thing in the episode. You have to turn it down when the Daleks come on, which is always fun. But yeah, I love Planet of the Daleks, and it is a masterpiece of television. Moving on to whatever this is, number 6. Number 6, and the second partially missing story and the last on this list, The Moonbase. Also, completely separately, the DVD gets an award for the best cover art of any DVD. From the moment I got this, I loved it. Just the look of that Cyberman is great. The best animation done. The animation for the 10th Planet is nearly as good. It's like the animation for the 10th Planet Part 4 is a 9 out of 10, but the animation for this is a 10 out of 10. It's just fantastic. It's such a tragedy that Planet 55, who are the ones who did the animation for this and 10th Planet, they're not doing animations anymore, so the only animations we're going to get in the future are the really crap Power of the Daleks and Macro Terror, and that just, I don't like it. I don't like that it's in colour. I don't like that it's widescreen. I don't like that they take their own liberties with it. An animation should be a replication of the missing episode, and that's what this is, and it's perfect. I just the animation is so good. But talking about the plot, some of Patrick Troughton's best work as the Doctor. This is the earliest of the stories that, I mean, spoilers, you know there's 2 more from what I said earlier, but this is the earliest Patrick Troughton story that I have on this list, and I just love it. He's great. There's that amazing moment where it's like, there are evils in the universe, which, you know, there are corners of the universe which have bred the most terrible things. I can't speak it because I'm a stupid person, but it's a great moment, and you all know that already. Ben and Polly are in it, of course, who are great. Jamie, who's even greater, is in it as well, although he doesn't have much to do for the first... any of this. He doesn't do anything in this story. No, he does right at the end. Right at the end he gets more to do, in like part 4. But the first 3 parts, Jamie's in bed, so he's actually not a particularly great view of his usefulness. Luckily, we're going to be seeing more of him in the future. Also, not the longest running companion, but the longest running companion in terms of proportion of how many stories he was in with his Doctor, because of course Patrick Troughton was only in 1 story without Fraser Hines, and then Fraser Hines was on board for the entirety of Patrick Troughton's run, which is why it was so tragic when he left, but we'll see about that later. Spoilers. But yeah, I love the Moonbase. The Cybermen design that were introduced in this are my absolute favourite Cybermen design. The designs were of course used for this and then later Tomb of the Cybermen. Just fantastic design. I love the 10th Planet design. I love the Invasion design. I even like Revenge of the Cybermen design. It starts losing me in the 80s. I'm not so keen on the 80s Cybermen. And we're not even going to speak about the abominations that we got in 2006 and onwards, which just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. But this was the peak of the Cybermen's design. I just love it. The animation replicates it perfectly. It's beautiful. The animation honestly looks better than the actual episodes do. I wouldn't mind if the whole thing was missing and they animated parts 2 and 4 as well. That would probably be even better. But it is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Kit Pedler was a genius. And yeah, it is just a wonderful story. Again, didn't have not as much to say as I would like to, but that's why I'm not a professional reviewer. This is just my opinion. Like 2 people are going to watch this, and I'm going to be one of them. And Mum. Hi, Mum. Next. Now into the top 5, and we have my favourite Hartnell story, The War Machines. Mentioned this earlier in the sense that it's not technically complete, but watching on the DVD with no prior knowledge. I mean, I've just got these on the shelf, that's why they're all covered in dust. Not that you can see any of that. Technically, there's about 2 minutes missing, but they managed to reconstruct it with other footage, so you can't really tell when you watch it. But we Doctor Who nerds know that, which is why I said earlier that Ben and Paula technically don't have any full stories, even though this is, for all intents and purposes, full. But yeah, of course, spoilers, Dodo leaves in this halfway through because Jackie Lane's contract ran out after episode 2. They really should have filmed an exit with her to put at the end like they did. I mean, they did it in the Faceless ones, because I can't remember the names of the actors, but Ben and Polly's actors, their contracts ran out, I think, after episode 3. And so they recorded at the big... It's a 6-part story, so they're not in the second half. But they filmed their exit to stick at the end of part 6. They filmed it before they left. So they managed to still have a proper exit, even as brief as it is. And just a filmed insert at the end. At least they got something. Dodo, Polly just comes up to the Doctor and says, "Oh yeah, Dodo's staying here." And it's one of the worst companion exits ever. Doesn't stop it being a bloody good story. I think this is the start of the best run of Doctor Who. I said before that Tom Baker is my favourite Doctor, and I will stand by that forever, but my favourite era of Doctor Who, the era where I think that had the best stories and the best writing and the best concepts, was the late 60s. So 1966, starting with the War Games, a Freudian slip, starting with the War Machines, going up to the War Games is the best era of Doctor Who. All of, like, because of course I'm mixing stuff here, but I think just some of the best stories ever were in that era. But it all started here. This is the blueprint for a lot of the second Doctor and the third Doctor stuff specifically, and then of course a lot of the modern series. The very first Doctor Who story to take place entirely in the modern day, at least as far as it was concerned. You get to see a swinging 60s nightclub with just like Coca-Cola and, you know, just stuff like that, which I'm sure is exactly what was going around at the time, at least the Coke part. And the LSD part, well, that's not in here. There is a, oh, nearly forgot about this. How could I forget about this? There's a Jimmy Savile reference in this episode. He's not in it, thank Christ, but there's this bit. I shouldn't be laughing. He, like, ripped hundreds of people. But there's this bit when the Doctor, because of course the Doctor has his long white hair, he walks into the club and Polly turns to Ben and says, "He looks like that DJ." Not the worst aging part in any of Doctor Who. There's things which have aged worse, but that definitely in like my top 3 worst aging parts of Doctor Who. Luckily, for future generations, that won't be a problem. I mean, I've watched people watch this on YouTube who gone straight off their heads, and I envy them. I'd very much like to not know who Jimmy Savile was. I mean, if there's a memory wipe, I'll have it gladly. But yes, apart from that tiny little problem and the aforementioned missing 2 minutes, which you just don't even realise when you actually watch it for the first time, I don't know. No, certainly, yeah, this was not one of the ones that was on Who or Horror. I saw this for the very first time on this very DVD, but I just love it. The sort of the War Machines, as they are called, are very Dalek-like, and there is a factor point in the Daleks' master plan where in the Egyptian sequence where the Egyptians refer to the Daleks as the War Machines, which was quite an interesting sort of foreshadowing, albeit most likely unintentional. The BT Tower is in it. It wasn't called the BT Tower, it's called the General Post Office Tower, as it was called, as you can see there in the middle. Votan, the evil computer, which is again a thing that would be revisited several times, probably most notably in the Green Death with Boss, but it originated here with Votan. And one of the very few times, not the only time, but one of the very few times that the Doctor is referred to as Doctor Who in the actual show. Obviously the credits refer to him as Doctor Who for like the first like nearly 20 years of the show, but and a lot of the time they use Doctor Who as like a joke, like they'd be like, you know, who you, and it's like, I'm the Doctor, but Doctor Who. That did happen a few. I know it's kind of a meme now, but that was genuinely the line in a lot of the 60s stuff. But this is, I think, the only time in classic Doctor, in any Doctor Who, where Doctor Who is just treated as his name. It's not treated as a joke, someone asking Doctor Who, or someone asking Doctor Who, and Doctor being like, exactly, or whatever. It's, people literally just refer to him as Doctor Who. Like, Votan says, Doctor Who is required. And then the main human villain, who's not really a villain, he's under the control of Votan. I can't remember his blooming name. Ba-dee-ba-boop. No, it doesn't mention it. But the main baddie, or the main human baddie, then uses the name Doctor Who to refer to the Doctor as well. Like, we must enlist Doctor Who, and it's a bit weird, but despite the odd flaw from this story, it is without competition my favourite Hartnell story. I mean, I like Hartnell, I really do, but a lot of his stories were bogged down by the imagination of the writers outweighing the budget. And this was one of the first times where they really used the budget, like they knew exactly what they could manage with their budget, and they wrote right to that line and not past it. So it's literally probably the best possible story that they could have made at the time. And it is fabuloso. And yeah, I just love it. So, numero 4, we return to the Jean Pertwee era with The Time Warrior, the first story of season 11. Introduces several great things. The first instance of the Sontarans with Lynx. Maybe controversial. I mean, I adore Lynx, he's fantastic. I personally prefer Styre from the Sontaran experiment, but as far as the story is concerned, The Time Warrior is certainly superior. Sarah Jane is introduced in this story, the best companion throughout Doctor Who history. I would not be sitting here recording this video if it weren't for Sarah Jane. I don't know how unusual my experience is, but I think it's fairly unusual. I got into Doctor Who through Sarah Jane. I watched the Sarah Jane adventures first. Before I'd seen any Doctor Who, the first series of the Sarah Jane adventures came on in 2007, and I loved it. That moved me on to Doctor Who, and I think, yeah, it will have been, because the 2007 series was that, and so the very first series I will have seen on the first series of Doctor Who I ever saw on its first initial broadcast. I went back and watched the early ones, of course, like the series 1 and 2 and 3, but series 4 was the first. I'm not totally sure about this, but from the way I can work it out in my head, it must be the case, because I know I got into the Sarah Jane Adventures first, which was broadcast in between series 3 and 4, so it must have been series 4 that was the first Doctor Who series I ever saw on broadcast. And I remember even then knowing who Davros was, which was weird because I hadn't seen no, I'm thinking of something else. I'm thinking of when I then went back and watched Series 1, the Series 1 finale, when I heard the Emperor's voice. I thought it was Davros, so I got that slightly mixed up. So maybe I didn't know who Davros was, because I definitely hadn't seen Genesis yet. But anyway, this is another one which I'm fairly certain was on Who on Horror, and that I think I saw it. But yeah, Sarah Jane is fantastic, as she always is. I mean, she's literally great in everything. Lynx is great. The Sontaran makeup on him is definitely the best makeup there was ever for any Sontaran. John Pertwee you can tell John Pertwee is starting to get a bit tired. Of course, a lot of things had happened in the previous. Obviously, Joe had left, and obviously he was he was very fond of Katie Manning. Roger Delgado died, and the behind the scenes crew was starting to move on as well, and so you could tell. Much as in season 18, you could tell Tom was starting to really get tired. You can tell John was he's not to the same extent, but you can tell he was starting to get a bit tired. Despite that, this is a fantastic story. I love Rubish, he's great. The fact that Sarah Jane literally sneaks into the TARDIS, I know she wasn't the only person to do that. Ben and Polly technically snuck on board the TARDIS as well in the War Machines, but I just love that she's immediately into it, she's immediately questioning, she's immediately... In fact, she starts out the story, not starts out, but about halfway through the story, she's formulating a plan to kidnap the Doctor. She's sort of against the Doctor for, the middle of the story, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I just love this story. And it's just great. And the ending, I'm not going to spoil it, of course, if you haven't seen it, although I'm sure very few people are watching this who haven't seen it, so I'll just say spoilers for the next, 20 seconds. The ending where the guy I think his name is Bron, or whatever his name is, but the guy, the sort of elf-looking guy with the bow and arrow, when he shoots that arrow straight into Lynx's pubic vent, one of the best moments of the entire series. Just and then when Lynx presses the button and the whole thing goes up. It's just, that is how you do science fiction in the 1970s. 4. So yes, this is my number 4 favourite Doctor Who story of all time. Next is number 3, The Tomb of the Cybermen. As far as I can recall, this was the very first black and white story that I saw on Who on Horror. Who on Horror, as you can probably tell already, is a pretty big part of my Doctor Who experience. I mean, I literally wouldn't be into classic Doctor Who without it. I had already, before Who on Horror, I'd only seen An Unearthly Child Part 1. And that was it. And there were like a couple of odd clips and stuff. Like I saw clips all the time on YouTube and such. But it wasn't until Who and Horror thing started that I started watching full classic stories, and I loved it. And this one was the first black and white one that I watched on there. So the very first full black and white story that I watched. And of course, quite significantly, the only fully complete 60s Cyberman story, which is pretty significant. And of course it was lost. It was a very special moment when it was rediscovered. I wasn't alive to appreciate that, of course. But it's just fantastic. I mean, it's one of those things where it's just perfect. It's a perfect story. A lot of people would argue otherwise. A lot of people would say that the character of Turboman is racist. They're idiots. If you have like 2 and up IQ, you can tell that it's a commentary on slavery. I mean, at the very end, the Doctor says to Turboman, they wanted to make you their slave. They're evil. If that's racist, Mr. Rogers is racist at that point, you know. But the word racist doesn't mean... I'm not going to go on a rant about that, but the word racist doesn't mean that anymore. But this story is fantastic, with its anti-slavery, anti-racist message, which it has if you have the intelligence to actually comprehend it. 4 parts, so it doesn't drag. Some of these drag a tad. I still love all the stories in this, of course, and I love most of Doctor Who. But it's just a perfect 4-parter, perfect characters, perfect villains, perfect heroes. It's a great story to show a beginner as well, like someone who's new to classic Doctor Who, or new to Doctor Who in general, of course. Because the way it's introduced is, of course, it's not... Victoria was introduced in the previous story, Evil of the Daleks, but this is her first adventure with the Doctor after joining the TARDIS team, and so she's literally, at the very beginning, she's introduced to the TARDIS, because I think, yeah, it was the first story of Season 5, and so they wanted to introduce it for anyone who had just joined. I don't know how much of a ratings boost there was between Series 4 and 5, but they thought, new season, we should introduce it, like a sort of, not even a soft reboot, but just, introducing it to new viewers. So they start by, so Jamie and the Doctor, again, Jamie, of course, introduce the TARDIS to Zoe. And it's a great scene. Speaking of great scenes, did I say Zoe? I meant Victoria. Speaking of great scenes, there's that scene in part 3, I think, with the Doctor and Victoria, where they talk about, her father, and, no one else in the universe gets to do what we're doing, and it's just the best moment of Doctor Who. Not really. Certainly the best. Well, it's just, yeah, each Doctor has that moment, doesn't there, where they become the Doctor. And honestly, with Patrick Troughton, it was in Power of the Daleks, he was perfect from the beginning, but this moment solidified the softer side of the Doctor, because Patrick Troughton was very mysterious and dark earlier on, and then later on started lightening up a little bit. And it happened in this where he was that very sweet, sort of grandfatherly moment, and it's a really nice moment that everyone goes on about it. It's nothing new that people talk about it, but it's a great moment. The Cybermen design is perfect. I mean, I know it's exactly the same as the moon base, but I particularly like the cyber controller with his big head. This story, of course, introduces the Cybermats, who are going to appear a few more times. I have somewhere in my house a toy of one of the modern Cybermats. I don't know where it is, but I have it somewhere. I think I showed it in one of my really old videos, but anyway, the voices, the way they did the voices in this, by the way, is the same way they did it in the Moonbase score, was with an electric larynx, which is the kind of thing, if you've seen South Park, you know Ned uses one of them, and it's... I don't know if you get away with it now, because people might be like offended that you're using, you know, like a tool to help disabled people as a bit of science fiction fun. They might find that offensive, I'm not sure, but I think it's great. I think it's really cool to use. Apparently it really hurt to use. I think I recall David Graham saying that at some point, that he hated having to use it because it hurt his throat. Worth it. I mean, you have to make sacrifices for your art, don't you? I think you should, anyway. You get the best stuff out of it. But yeah, this Tomb of the Cybermen, the best Cyberman story ever. And it is remembered the way it is for a reason, as being the classic that it is. So that is my number 3 choice. Number 2 is one which a lot of people would put as number 1, but it's my number 2 because I think my number 1 is just that little bit more special and longer. That helps. Spoilers. Number 2, Genesis of the Daleks. What has not been said about this story? The introduction of the greatest villain in Doctor Who history, Davros, with the best performance of said character. I love Terry Malloy, and Julian Bleach is pretty blooming good as well, but Michael Wisher, who was of course in Doctor Who many times, in many different roles, and even voiced the Daleks in the preceding 2 serials to this, Death and Planet. This story is not even really a Dalek story, to be honest. If you're going into this expecting Daleks, you're probably not going to enjoy it, because they're only on it for about 6 minutes. But it's about the drama, it's about the morality. This story has the greatest Doctor... I mean, I know I said about Tomb earlier. This story has the greatest moment in Doctor Who history. Do I have the right? Again, at this point I'm going to be saying nothing new. If you're here for new stuff, I mean, I might say some new stuff about number 1, because I don't think most people put it as their number 1. But this story is remembered the way it is for a reason. Some people say it drags at 6-part. I disagree completely. I think it's one of the few 6-parters that I can watch in a day. A lot of those I have to split in half, but this one I usually split it in half anyway, but I have on multiple occasions watched it all in one day. It is superb. Sorry, I didn't roll that enough. I need to this story is so going to superb. That's much better. And there's so many other great scenes. I mean, it's one of those things where I knew it was a fantastic story before I ever saw it. Again, with this one, I think I saw this on Who on Horror, but I'm not absolutely certain. It might have been my first time watching it on DVD, but I think it was on Who on Horror. But it's just a fantastic story. The moments where it's just the Doctor and Davros talking, and Davros has that great moment, like, yes, I would do it, and he crushes the imaginary glass vial in his hand. It is just a fantastic moment. It's one of those ones that even just watching the clip of that scene on YouTube, like 10 years before I ever actually got around to watching the actual story, it's just fantastic. It's a fantastic scene. This is why, again, I'm going to get back into my hateful Nazi mode. The reason I will not watch any of this modern Doctor Who from the Chris Chibnall era onwards, and honestly I thought it started getting crap as soon as Matt Smith came on board. I quite like Matt Smith, but his Doctor is dreadful, and 99% of the stories throughout the whole of Stephen Moffat's era are crap as well. But I stopped watching, I haven't watched any of Chibnall or RTD2's stories, and I'm never going to, because the clips, I've seen clips. There are no clips, like you can tell just from the clips from this story, from the scene, do I have the right? From the scene where, yes I would do it, crosses imaginary glass vial, asterisk, asterisk. You can tell it's a great story just from those scenes, just from those 2-minute clips, you can tell it's a fantastic story. The modern series, since Chibi took over, or even honestly since Stephen Moffat took over, there's a couple of great moments like that in Russell T Davies' first era. I don't know what has happened to that man. I mean, he must have caught some disease, because I don't believe for a second that the man who made, like, Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways made this recent... It's literally not the same person. I mean, new conspiracy theory alert. You know, he's got something going on upstairs, or he's being held at gunpoint to make it, which I wouldn't put it past the BBC. Well, no, it's Disney. That explains it. Disney. He's being held at gunpoint. That must be it, because he's a good writer. So that, you know, he must be being held. My number 2. And my favourite TARDIS team as well. I mean, obviously number 1 is not this TARDIS team, but I think the best TARDIS team of all time is the 4th Doctor, Sarah Jane and Harry Sullivan. Such a shame we didn't get any more of Harry after Terror of the Zygons, which was actually filmed as part of season 12. Fun fact, for those of you who don't know. It was then just delayed and broadcast as part of season 13, but it was filmed as season 12. The best TARDIS team ever, in my opinion. I love the way they work together. It is just fantastic. But yeah, and I love this TARDIS team so much that my favourite Doctor Who book ever, which wasn't planning on talking about, but I'll just get it briefly to show you. This, System Shock by Justin Richards. It's one of the Virgin Missing Adventures. My favourite Doctor Who book. I mean, I only have 8 or something. No. Yeah, 8 exactly. I've only read 6 of them. This is my favourite Doctor Who book, and I doubt, unless some of the other ones are really good, this is going to stay that way, because it is the Doctor, Sarah Harriet. I mean, this is the book that got me into reading as an adult, or, reading adult books. I mean, there's violence in it, that's about it. There's no naughty bits, and there's no drugs, and there's no, swearing or anything, or not that I can really think of. But there's violence. I mean, there's this bit where this woman with red hair, spoilers again for this book, this woman with red hair whose name I can't remember, she gets shot. And there's this which I remembered from the very first, I've read this, I think just once since. But there's this moment which stuck in my memory, and I must have been 14 or something when I first read this, and it's stuck in my head ever since, this moment of this woman with red hair getting shot, and the description of the blood mixing with her red hair as she's lying on the floor, and it just, that vividness just stuck with me, and I loved it, because I watched Day of the Dead when I was about 3, so, I'm disturbed. But a fantastic book, and for Doctor Who fans, and particularly fans of this era. I mean, it's set in between The Seeds of Doom and The Mask of Mandragora, so Harry's gone by this point, but they meet back up with him in this. And for people who love the 4th Doctor, Sarah and Harry, I would very much recommend reading System Shock by Justin Richards. Don't know how much time I have left on my camera, but this Genesis Daleks number 2, fantastic story, love it, and another good one to introduce a new fan of Doctor Who to. And my number 1 favourite Doctor Who story of all time is the War Games. Definitely not one that I watched on Who on Horror. The very first time I ever watched this was with this very DVD that I'm holding. Just a perfect story. This YouTube channel, a reaction channel that I'm subscribed to called Hamza Reacts, has literally just today finished this story, and it just spurred me on to make this video, mainly just for talking about this. I know I've spent nearly an hour talking about these. But, buddy, is this a bloomin' good 'un. It's just I love it. I love it so much. The greatest Doctor Who guest star of all time, Philip Maddock. The very first appearance of the Time Lords. I know technically we had Time Lords earlier. Susan was a Time Lord. The meddling monk was a Time Lord. But this is the first appearance of Time Lord Society. I don't hate how they're portrayed in the 70s. A lot of people say they got really crap in the 70s, like in The Deadly Assassin and in Invasion of Time. There's sort of bureaucracy that's displayed, and a lot of people don't like that. I quite like the 70s Time Lords, but they're not this. It's just perfect. It's a perfect story. I mean, it's 10 parts long and it doesn't drag. This is why even though I haven't read it, I'm already disappointed with the novelisation. I mean, it's going to be probably a couple of years till I get that, because I'm collecting them quite slowly. Just fast enough for me to still be alive by the time I've completed them, but, no faster. I'm planning on getting about 4 a year from now on, but I might change that to just buying job lots, because it'll probably be cheaper and faster, so... But the book is less than 200 pages. I mean, this is one that desperately needs a rewrite, because a few stories that were published in the 70s and stuff have been rewritten for the newer target range, and this is one I'm really hoping... I'm sure it's a good novelisation and stuff, but this is one I'm really, really hoping gets a rewrite for the new target novelisations and gets a longer... I mean, it needs to be at least, like, 250 pages, if not 300. I mean, it would be much better served by being, like, missing a new adventure length of around 300 pages. That'd be perfect. But we don't need it, because we have this, and it's not missing a single... Which is amazing. I mean, for the Troughton era, the fact that it's not missing a single episode is just... I mean, it's like God came down and said, this story needs to be seen in full. It is just great. The mystery is... It mixes the best of the historicals with the best of the science fiction stuff. I'm typically not one for the historicals. I like a couple of them. I love the Aztecs, and I quite like the Mythmakers as well, even though it's missing. I still quite enjoyed it. But it starts off as a historical, and the mystery is just fantastically done. You start out in World War I, and you think this is weird, and slowly they reveal that they have technology beyond their time. And then one of the guys has a TARDIS, and you think, what is going on here? And it's just fantastic. I can't talk for too long because my camera's literally about to run out in a minute. But I mean, my dad lied to me, actually, because when I was growing up, getting into Doctor Who, he told me he really liked Doctor Who. He even got me a Doctor Who book that he said was his, which I'm now kind of doubting. But recently, me and my mum have gone through we've finished Classic Doctor Who now, but we went through from the very beginning to the very end, and she loved it, and I really want to go through it with my dad as well, but he said he wasn't really interested, but he was willing to watch the odd story, and I made sure that this was the first one that I watched, because my dad is into wars. I mean, he reads Winston Churchill's diaries, so he's kind of obsessed with wars in a strange way, because I don't think he's a fan of them. But he reads loads of books about wars, he watched loads of films about wars, so I thought this was the one to show him. And he did actually, he pretended that he didn't enjoy it as much as he really did, because he wanted to seem cool and not nerdy in front of me. But I can tell he really did enjoy it. We watched it, and I think the best way I'd recommend watching this to anyone to watching this, don't try and watch it in one go. What we did, and how I've always watched it and always will, is the first 3 parts, the second 3 parts the day after, and then the final 4 parts the day after that. For anyone wanting to watch this story, that's how I'd recommend it. 3, 3, 4. Do not watch it in one day. It's my favourite Doctor Who story of all time. Even I have not watched it in one day. You will not enjoy it if you watch it in one day. You will just be falling asleep by the end. Not through boredom, but through sheer tiredness. But it's perfect. I will not hear a bad word said against... There's not a literally... I mean... Genesis. Some of the sets look a bit cheap and wobbly. The Daleks don't get enough screen time. This... Perfect. There's not a single flaw with this story. Not one single flaw. Everything is perfect. All the actors are top of their game. The writing is fantastic. I mean, this was written in a rush. This was... What... Uncle Terry and Uncle Malky, Hulk, writing in a hurry. And it's the best story ever. I mean, I just don't understand it. And the finale, I mean, the fact that they force him to regenerate, spoilers, they force Jamie and Zoe to forget him. It's a tragedy. They're terrifying, the Time Lords. They really build up the mystery. You see the TARDIS console for the final time in black and white in Part 10, and actually Part 10 is the first time you see it in quite some time, actually. It's not the final time you see that prop, because they wheel it out in Season 7 a couple of times as well before they rebuild it for Season 8. And there's a great... Actually, I'll probably forget to link, but there's a great website talking about the history of the TARDIS console prop. I might link it, if I remember, which is a great read if you're into like the history of the prop and you're a nerd like I am. But having said everything there is to say, if there's any story I'd recommend that you haven't seen... Well, I mean, if you haven't seen any of these, just pick one that you think sounds interesting. But this one, absolutely #1 recommend if you haven't seen it before. It is the greatest Doctor Who story of all time, in moi's opinion. Having said all that, I'm now going to pose for the thumbnail. And having said all that, I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. That is all for this time. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next thing that I do. Goodbye.